And welcome. Week number 1, the Trevor and Bryce Show. I am here with my esteemed guest, Mr. Bryce Petty. Bryce, how we doing, man?
Man, we are fantastic. Trevor, esteemed colleague, best friend. Well, you're my best friend. I don't know.
Do we just become best friends?
Maybe. Karate in the garage? I don't know. You guys are in for a treat because we're doing this 18 times, coming at you hot. There's going to be movie quotes. There's going to be special guests. And, of course, there's going to be Big 12 football talked about. So I'm excited. Trevor, what are we doing? Who are we? What do we got going on?
Yeah, so obviously Trevor and I'm a completely washed up former quarterback from both the University of Oklahoma, Boomer Sooner, and Texas A&M, Giga Maggies. And we have been talking about this forever, haven't we, Bryce?
I'm telling you, I know it. It's number 12 in your heart. Number 1 on the field, maybe? Or is that switch? I think it's switch. Number 9 on the field, number 1 in your heart.
That's right. That's
right.
Where
it goes. That's where it goes.
Every
exciting.
time.
That's what's exciting about this show. We're going to mess up the whole time because we're having beer.
That's right.
You know, and it's fun. It's exciting. We would encourage our followers there. I hope there's going to be followers. I have no idea. Join along in the fun. But that's the whole point of us wanting to do this is 1, we love ball. 2, if you ask my wife, I probably talk too much. I love talking about ball. But more importantly, we have a title sponsor. Can you give our guest?
Yeah. So we're really excited. I mean, new show, everything else. We're gonna be talking Big 12 football, which, Bryce, as everybody knows, that could be 1 week, 2 weeks, next year, 2025. Who knows? But we're gonna be talking Big 12 football. So join us every week to talk anything and everything going on in the Big 12. And of course, we'll mix in some national stuff, anything that's going on. But we do have a sponsor already. It's amazing. Bet Rivers. Bet Rivers is a online sports book that we are super, super excited to have just an opportunity to represent them on our podcast. But let me tell you a little bit about our partners over there at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up with Bet Rivers yet, now is the time. Bet Rivers Sportsbook is offering a $250. Did you hear me? $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart is that they require just one play through your bonus, and you can turn it into cash money. That's right, real cash. When you win with Bet Rivers Sportsbook, they pay fast. And it's even faster with Rush Pay, instant approval with withdrawals. With withdrawals.
You know, and they give you the tools to be successful.
That's right.
So that's what's exciting.
It's safe, it's secure, it's reliable. There's never been a better time to give Bet Rivers Sportsbook a try. Go to betrivers.com today or download Bet Rivers on iOS app or Android. Must be 21 years or older. You got a gambling problem, you got to say it, 1-800-GAMBLER. But we don't have that problem. Go join Bet Rivers. Pretty awesome that we have that sponsor. Bryce.
Yes, sir.
We're talking Big 12 football.
Yep.
Of course, we don't have a Big 12 game this week, and that is okay. This is our first show. We're going to set the stage. So let's just talk very quickly and before we get into our esteemed guest, Mr. Greg McElroy, which I'm super excited to have on this week. Let's talk a little bit of high-level Big 12 football for our listeners. So let me ask you this. We'll start off this way. Lots of great players in the Big 12 this year, right? We've obviously got Oklahoma, who's won the league the last 6 years. They're going to try and make it 7, under Lincoln Riley. But players all over the league. Who's your player to watch in the Big 12 this year?
Man, I tell you what. To your point, there are a lot of fantastic players out there. There's always players. I think our guest is, I hope, along with a lot of other people, this is a deep league, very deep league. We have great coaches. And I think guys are going to be fighting for something this year. There's a lot of things going on, media-wise, a shakeup with the conference. But I tell you what, and I hate doing this. I'm excited about doing this, but I hate doing this because a lot of it's going to be Boomer Sooner. I mean, how do you not talk about Lincoln Riley? How do you not talk about Spencer Rattler? That kid he's a player now. He's a player. Excited to watch year 2. I loved how Lincoln really, kind of let him go through the ebbs and flows last year. Kind of let him get down a little bit, pulled him, one of those games, big game. Let him come back and win the dang game for him, in the Texas shootout. So I'm really excited to see Spencer Rattler this year and his growth. Playing into all this hype. What is he going to do? He's got Lincoln Riley. I think he's going to play great. What about you?
Yeah, I'll agree with you that all eyes are on Spencer Rattler. I mean, the guy is poised to not only win Big 12 Player of the Year, but potentially the Heisman, potentially go number 1 overall and follow in his boys Baker and Kyler's footsteps. But I'm going to go a different route. Iowa State.
I knew
right?
I knew what you were doing.
We're really going to talk a lot about Iowa State. What they are doing up their names is unbelievable. So I am going to go with my player to watch, Breece Hall, the Heisman hopeful running back for the Cyclones. The guy is just an absolute ball player. You talk about a culture changer, a guy that'll run in between the tackles, a guy that understands the game of football. I don't know him personally, obviously, but a locker room guy, somebody that you want to build your team around. He's going to be a lot of fun to watch this year. I think he's going to score a lot of touchdowns and be very difficult to bring down. So that's my player to watch, Breece Hall. What about your team to watch? Who are you watching? I know we already talked about Oklahoma, right?
Yeah,
but who is the team, maybe aside from Oklahoma, maybe even aside from Iowa State, that you're watching this year? Is it your Bears? Is it somebody else?
You know what? I tell you what, the Bears are exciting. Coach Aranda's got them. This is the first full season. Now we had the COVID. New coach, COVID. There's a lot of things going on. We just, I don't know if you noticed, but throughout who QB1 is, which is exciting. But I tell you what, Oklahoma State is interesting to me. You got a lot of hype around Oklahoma, but there's 2 schools in Oklahoma, and Mike Gundy just year in and year out puts a lot of good players on the field rather. And on tape, when you watch them, they play hard, they play together. They're mature. I don't know. I think Oklahoma State might give them a run. I don't know. What do you think?
It's deceptive because you're right. I mean, Mike Gundy gets it done year in and year out. He's been there forever, it seems like, mullet and all.
That's what I was going to say. Enough to grow a mullet. That's when you've been in Oklahoma probably too long.
That's right. At first, I think that the obvious answer other, again, than Oklahoma is Iowa State because they're returning 19 to 22 starters. They won the Fiesta Bowl last year against Oregon. It's going to be fun to watch, but I'm really excited to watch Steve Sarkisian in Austin. Just been a carousel there. And as much now as I'm not a Texas fan, I am a fan of Texas being good, right? I mean, my allegiances tell me that I can't be a Texas fan, but believe it or not, my room was burnt orange for almost my whole life. My dad's a Texas ex. Yeah. I grew up going to Austin saying I was Colt McCoy's little brother. So I used to have orange blood. It is straight crimson now. But I'm excited to see what Steve Sarkisian can do in year 1. He brings his experience from the NFL, from Alabama, who obviously has been atop the college football world in recent history. I think they could shake some things up if they put the right pieces in place down there in Austin. So that'll be fun to watch.
Definitely really good play there. And I think too, again, and I think we talked about this maybe off air, but what Saban does with coaches kind of revitalizing that career, I think Sark's got another gear in him, and there is a chip on your shoulder there to prove that he belongs in that place in terms of being a head coach. And I think what he did with Alabama last year, moving those guys around, they got unbelievable athletes down there in Tuscaloosa, but at the same time, Texas can recruit. Texas has always been, a very, in terms of prestige, nostalgia. There's a play there in Austin that if a coach with burnt orange comes in, in your office in high school, man, how do you gotta wait a little bit. So it'll be very exciting to see what he does there. Let's kind of continue on that. So what did we learn last year from the Big 12 moving into this year? This is kind of our preseason show. Again, like you said, we don't have a Big 12 game coming up, but that doesn't mean we can't talk about at least what we learned and then going into the season. So tell me some of the things that you saw. COVID year is kind of strange, a little bit different, but what did we learn last year that really, gets us excited about this year?
Yeah, you're right. It was a COVID year, so it was interesting, but I think the 2 biggest things, and this really could be across the board in any conference across the college football landscape, but the 2 most important things in the Big 12 is having a quarterback that can command and make plays, right? And then the other thing is to have a defense. And that wasn't always the case. Everybody knocks the Big 12 on being a straight offensive league.
Yeah.
But you are seeing now with the Alex Grinch hire at Oklahoma and what they're doing there on the defensive side of the ball, what Iowa State was able to do with some of their big time players that returning All-Americans coming back this year. When you can stop the run and you've got guys in the back end that are shutting down some of these, highly touted Big 12 receivers, it's a real big game changer. So, of course, you've got Spencer Rattler coming back for the Sooners, but you've also got other quarterbacks in this league that have experience that are going to be able to do big, big things. Brock Purdy, he's been at Iowa State for 72 and a half seasons. He's coming back with a lot of experience, a chip on his shoulder, success under his belt. You look at some of these teams that go and win conference championships and national championships over and over, the Clemsons, the Alabamas of the world. They've got experience. You step in and you already understand what it's like to win. When you get a little of that confidence under your belt, watch out. Brock Purdy, Spencer Rattler, some of these other guys that have played quite a bit before. It'll be fun to watch at the quarterback position, and I think you're going to see a lot better defense this year from some of these ball programs.
I love it. And too, you got guys stepping up. I think Max Duggan's a very interesting person to me down in Fort Worth with TCU. Again, another guy with some ups and downs. I don't know if we just kind of draw to the Q position, maybe because we're two Qs here.
Two Qs.
Old wash, two Qs. But I'm really interested, to see how he comes back, how he fights. The guys over there in purple always have a pretty decent chip on their shoulder. That's probably the last thing you'll hear me say about TCU on this podcast. But I'm actually pretty excited to see those guys, how they transition, how they mature. Again, I've already mentioned Spencer Rattler. It's another guy. What we learned from him last year is that the kid can play. Now, can he live up to the hype? There's a whole different world when you play.
That's right.
This is actually a great point here. Alabama, Oklahoma, your red shirt freshman year.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, you had your coming out party. So give us a little bit about that, because I think that's super interesting. That game was, again, your coming out party, and you had the whole off season to sit there and listen to media, listen to the hype, read the books, read all the tweets and all that kind of stuff. What is that like going into, a season full of hype versus, hey, who's this kid and can he play?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, Bryce, just from playing, sometimes being the underdog is a better position to be in. Because you can just go to work. You don't have to worry about the target on your back, and you get to go out there and compete to knock Goliath off the pedestal, right? And the inverse of that is winning big games, having somebody pencil you in for the Heisman or pencil you in for, a national championship or even a conference championship. It's a lot harder to stay at that level, right? Mm-hmm. For me personally, man, I was just excited. I was excited to go into the next year, and then we ended up losing 3 conference games by a total of 7 points combined, which completely derailed our stadium. Then the Mighty Bears with some guy named Bryce Petty came to Norman and just absolutely got after us, which is a little bit different story. But, that was tough. I mean, that was really tough to come off a game like that and then go into a year going 8-5. And so you hope for the Oklahomas, the Iowa States of this year, that they're going to rise to the occasion, that they've been working all offseason to get it going so they can not only live up to those expectations, but make memories for the long haul. Right?
Yeah, I love it. Well, let's do this. So superlatives are always interesting. Kind of going on that superlatives feel here. Who do you think is going to win, Big 12 Player of the Year?
Yep.
And then who do you think ultimately comes out with the championship at the end?
So I think, again, and we're, right now until the season starts, again, living up to expectations. If he does that, he's a shoo-in for Offensive Player of the Year in the Big 12. The fun part is you got an Iowa State guy in Mike Rose, the returning linebacker, returning All-American, that is – I'm burping up my beer. This is tough using a beer. That's great.
Nice.
Good thing we don't have smell. It's just, But you've got him returning at that linebacker position. He can do it all. He can drop in coverage. He can rush the passer. He can catch the ball. He's a phenomenal athlete, but he's got a chip on his shoulder, and he just works, and he just works, and he just works. And again, big locker room guy. So I know he's also the favorite, but I think it's rightfully so defensive player of the year. Who do you think is going to be your guy for player of the year?
You know what? I tell you what, I hate going with you. Just sounded like a broken record, but I think, as everybody will say, it's his to lose, right? It's Spencer Rattler's to lose.
Yep.
I want him to do well. I want him to excel. Whether or not, this is his last year at OU, who knows? But I think if he does play up to his potential, I think he's got a really good shot. What's interesting is again, that team. I mean, it's how fast they can gain momentum, and can they keep momentum? I think guys are going to come out and they're going to circle OU. They're going to circle when they come, to play, when they go to Norman. Everybody's going to want to kind of headhunt OU a little bit. And so they're going to have to bring their A game every time. And Lincoln Riley, as you know and can attest to, can get guys ready for games. But I think it's either going to go through Norman or Ames. I really do.
I agree.
And I'm pretty excited to see those games and how they unfold. So OU, I do have OU with a close second with Ames. It's just too hard to beat OU twice.
I agree. Well, hey, let's go ahead and bring Greg on. Super excited to have Greg. Greg McElroy, mostly an SEC guy, but the dude absolutely knows his stuff. We're excited to have somebody of expertise on for this first show, share his thoughts on a lot of things personal, probably some stuff about the Big 12, and then just the college football landscape in general. So let's bring on Greg McElroy. Here we go, Greg.
Beautiful. All right, guys. Now this is part of this segment or the show rather, that Trevor and I are stoked about. We get to bring in a special guest every week. Why not start it off, Trevor, with the best guy out there? Texas kid, Alabama kid, which is very interesting. Played in the NFL for a few years. Now he does kind of what we're doing, which we're excited about. None other than Greg McElroy. Greg, what's up, man?
What's up, fellas? Thanks for having me.
Man,
congrats on the new show. Excited to listen. Take a peek.
This is fun. I'm more of the brains in the podcast, if you can't tell. Trevor, my co-host, is the looks. And so, anyways, you round us out. A little bit of both.
Wasn't Trevor on The Bachelor, or his brother was on The Bachelor or something or was that? Oh, that was Aaron Murray.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, everybody says I should have gone on The Bachelor. Now I am happily married, and my wife.
He just say that. He just said that, Greg.
My wife is one of those people that got asked to be on The Bachelorette, and declined it. So we have some mutual interest there, but never went on The Bachelor. Would never do.
Bachelor written all over you.
I'm an old school guy.
That's a no-brainer. I'm shocked you weren't on there.
Greg,
the hair's right, the body's right. I get it. I'm shocked though, frankly. I really am.
I'm a handwritten letter guy. I'm old school, absolutely old school. But like Bryce said, we want to be you, Greg. This is where this is starting. We want to be sitting in your shoes one day, getting to talk ball. Not just talk ball, but talk ball for a living. But we're excited to have you on, man. And this is going to be a lot of fun, not only today with you, but this year. Bryce and I are super pumped to get this thing going and talk some ball throughout the season. So I have to ask you, Greg, in light, and I know you've beaten us over the head. Everybody's beaten us over the head, right? But the NIL comes out. Kids are starting to get paid. It's an absolute crazy world. In my opinion, I am so incredibly against it. So I want to ask you, we can go online and hear your stance on the NIL, but I want to ask you, a guy coming out of South Lake Carroll High School, going to the University of Alabama. Nick Saban gets hired, your second year?
My second year, yeah.
Second year. And then you go on to a perfect season national championship. Realistically, what do you think you would have made back in the day, in today's dollars? Because I know, all of us here, we have dust on us now. But, in today's dollars, what are you making?
Oh, it's a tough call, honestly, because I think so much about, and I don't know about y'all, and I'd be curious to get y'all's take on it, because I think everyone's got a little different experience. Obviously, when we won the national championship, we could have made probably well in excess of six figures, I would assume. some of the numbers you hear, like 7 figures, I'm not buying that. Like, I think the guys that might be getting 7 figures, I would imagine, and both you guys played in the league and played professionally, I would imagine that some of those negotiations are long-term negotiations. So, for instance, if you're earning 7 figures as, say, a high school senior that now has foregone their senior year at my alma mater, I had. And, yeah, Quinn Ewers, he's making 7 figures. Yeah, but really not really, because he's got a piece of a kombucha drink that he was able to get equity in. So that's really a long-term investment. So it's not really that case. I think some of the headlines have been remarkably misleading. The average that people are making is probably $400, and for the lucky few, and that was according to a specific source, $471 is the average across college football. Oh. So is it life-changing money? No, but that's a whole heck of a lot of money. I don't know about y'all. I lived like a king for $1,000 a month. A king. Rent, bar, food, you name it. A king for $1,000 a month. So $471 a month is pretty dang good. But it's not the generational wealth like some people have kind of suggested.
I agree. So we'll take it back to you. You grew up in Southlake. There's a place called Joe's Pizza, and I've seen your jersey on the wall at Joe's. Yeah. Would you, and then you went through the process going into the NFL. You know, you get a marketing agent or your agency. They go and bat on your behalf to create your marketability, but also keep your marketability at a certain level, right? And you're not just throwing out tweets or DMs. Would you, taking yourself back, would you have slid in the DMs of Joe's Pizza and asked for a little endorsement deal from the hometown?
No, probably not. I mean, Joe's is like, those are like my guys. So like I would go in there and grab a Stromboli. I got the same thing every time. And it progressively, it started with 1 Stromboli, and then it got to like 1 1/4, then it got to 1 1/2, then it got to 1.75. And then finally I was able to eat 2 Strombolis in a single sitting. And I think that's when I got the jersey on the wall. So I mean, y'all know the Strombolis are like this big, dude. Like we're talking like Chipotle burritos times 3. I mean, it had to have been 4,000 calories in a single sitting. It had to have been. And taking that down, that was big at Joe's. But no, I mean, honestly, I was never one that cared that much. Like, did I like the idea of becoming marketable as a result of where I played? Yeah. And success that we might have had would lead to an increased platform. Like, yeah, that mattered to me. But like honestly, I would not have cared about money. If you would have told me, all right, Greg, you can get free Nikes, awesome. I would have done that in a heartbeat. You can get free Smoothie King. I would have done that in a heartbeat. Like the things that I used, I would have been all for if I could have gotten them for free. If you give me money, it was funny because it was almost like I just never needed money in college. Like I guess it wasn't front of mind. All I really wanted to do was work out, train, try to be healthy, and be the best position I could be to be successful each and every Saturday. Like that's really all we cared about. So it's easy to say that now from our high horse because we didn't have access to NIL, but I honestly don't think if I could go back, I would have cared as much about the dollars that we could have possibly accumulated. I would have cared so much more about specific items that I could have gotten in return for endorsing a specific product. I would have just tried to align with places I liked, places I frequented, and places that I wanted to go.
I agree with you. And I think that on the back end of all this, at least on the careers of some of these guys that are chasing that dollar figure, whatever it is, they're going to look back and probably regret it a little bit, knowing that, hey, if you're good enough, the money's going to come anyway. If you're not, the money's not going to come. Go and try and win a national championship, right? Go and try to be the best player that you can be. I'm incredibly against the NIL. I'm incredibly against what Quinn did. And it's not a bash on Quinn. It's just what's going to happen to the other players that are going to try and follow in his footsteps. I think it's going to be bad. I mean, you specifically, you sat behind Chase Daniel in high school. And then when you got your moment, you made the most of it, right? I mean, he's done incredibly well for himself in terms of, right. But, and then even when you were at Alabama, you sat for a couple years and then again, made the most of your opportunity. So let me ask you this. When you're at Alabama.
Back to what you're saying, like, I think what you said a second ago though, Trev, like that makes the most sense to me. It's like, okay, it's great to get the money now. It's a cash grab for sure. And I think everyone acknowledges that. And by the way, I think the numbers are so inflated right now, and these companies are going to realize, dude, people are not necessarily buying products that are being pushed by 18 to 22-year-old kids. They're just not. I mean, for instance, like I have a 2.5-year-old son. Like, I'm not going to go buy something because Tua Tagovailoa in college told me that, that's what he wants to go get. Now, maybe that moves the needle for some, but for instance, the gym membership in Miami, the guy's paying $540,000 to the Miami roster in order to sell gym memberships. Like, he's not going to see a return on that investment. So I think some of these deals are going to go by the wayside pretty quick. What lives forever is your legacy as a player. You guys both had incredible performances. Like, I would imagine, Trevor, and it gets brought up where I live all the time, you hear more about the performance against Alabama in the Sugar Bowl than, like, you'll live and make money and profit off that game, that performance forever. Like, forever. Like, Bryce, there will be examples of your success at Baylor that you will be able to profit off of forever. Like, that's an annuity over the course of the next 60 years. Not the initial cash grab that you get. Yeah, it's nice, but what really lives on and what really is a creation of value is playing at a really high level, because that's what people will remember.
Yep, no doubt.
Do you feel like this changes the scope of recruiting a little bit? I mean, how far do you think this kind of trickles down to where people, to your point, because I think it's a great point, is as anybody with money, I kind of take the, Mr. Wonderful of the Shark Tank. I want to see those little dollars crawl back to me. So the idea of, paying an entire roster, you're never going to see that $500,000 back. And that $500,000 goes a long way when you're running a gym membership, right? Especially in wake of COVID and all that other stuff. So do you think that this is just kind of a real quick Wild West? This is a water balloon to the face, and then it, just kind of goes by? Or do you think that this actually starts to affect, if I got a scholarship from, Waco and then Dallas, with SMU, am I taking Dallas just because of the possibilities of bigger market?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, the places that recruit are always going to recruit, because while it's changed some, guys acknowledge now, how can I get to the league? Can I contend for a championship at the place I'm going to contend at? And that's really what guys care about. So, and just for the record, like, the schools that are doing the best job of placing players in the league are going to have the largest platform from which they can use NIL. Like, Bryce Young at Alabama is the quarterback. They've won several championships. They're the best recruiting program for the most part over the last decade. Bryce Young has endorsement deals with Cash App, with Panini, that both are $250,000 each, and has probably 2 or 3 other things that are going to be fairly lucrative as well. He'll make over 7 figures this year. So NIL will change because they'll have that blueprint from which to draw from. So when Nick Saban goes into a recruit's house, he can quite literally lay out, hey, NIL, here's what our starting quarterback did last year. And by the way, he had all these deals before he ever took a starting snap.
That's big.
That's big. But that's what great programs have to their advantage, because they win and they play in games that are watched and consumed. Over the last 5 years, 35 times Alabama's had more than 4 million viewers watch their product. And that includes several times in the playoffs as well. That's the most in college football. Ohio State's second with 31 times they've played a game in which 4 million people watched. Oklahoma, Texas A&M, elite programs, they're averaging somewhere between 10 and 17. So it's kind of remarkable, the trickle down, but the reason why those programs have the biggest platform is because they win the most games and they have the biggest impact on the playoffs. So I think NIL is going to be there. The national brands are going to be there for the national brands because they win.
Yeah, I love it. There's no doubt. So it will impact recruiting, obviously. So when you were getting recruited, you were recruited by one head coach. Well, actually, you committed to Tech for a little while, right?
Yeah. I was a Red Raider.
Yep. So you switch and you go in under one head coach, and then Nick Saban gets hired after your first redshirt year, correct?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So transitioning from NIL to this portal, the transfer portal, which I get asked that question a lot because I was a transfer.
Right.
I had some success at both schools, but I still have kind of my thoughts about the transfer portal. Not a fan of it. Would you be a guy now today that would be looking at potentially entering that transfer portal? I mean, obviously, you did great things in high school. Maybe it's going to work out for you. Maybe it's not. But how has that changed, the landscape of college football, this transfer portal deal? And are you a believer in it, or are you not?
First of all, I think the portal is a disaster. So there's got to be a way to clean it up. Now, the biggest reason why it's a disaster is because there are coaches that are basically skirting the rules, and there's not strict enough enforcement on guys that meddle in the transfer portal. For instance, Trevor, I'm your high school coach in San Antonio. I happen to be an Aggie fan. You're very happy. You're having a great career going on in Oklahoma. Well, if I'm a guy at Texas A&M, what's to stop me from calling your head coach in San Antonio saying, hey, we would love to have Trevor if, he was open to transferring. Well, you obviously have a relationship with your high school coach. Word gets back to you. Next thing you know, you're in the portal and you're essentially already signed, sealed, and delivered going to A&M before you even decide to leave Oklahoma. And right now that's happening all over the place, and that's a problem.
Yep.
The other problem is a lot of guys are getting really bad information. They're entering the portal, and they're basically foregoing any opportunity for future scholarship at that previous school. And now they're in the portal with nowhere to go. They ultimately end up going to JUCO, or they end up not playing at all because they don't have a destination. They can't afford to pay for school. That's the other problem. So I think that we need at least a few things. One, we need to have a buffer for players that enter the portal with really bad information with nowhere to go, meaning they can return to their previous school if they enter the portal mistakenly. That's never going to happen, because once guys go in the portal, a lot of coaches are going to say, to hell with them, we're better without them, we're moving on. Because if the guy can't find a home, then what does that tell you about what kind of player he is? So that'll never happen, but I don't like the idea of kids taking on more student debt or not being able to fulfill their academic potential. The other thing that I think we need to have like legit enforcement for coaches that meddle and or pander to high school coaches and recruit through the back channels to get guys to enter the portal. That needs to be an extremely harsh penalty, to the point where we make an example of guys that are doing it. And if we don't do that, then guys are going to continue to do that. If I get a slap on the wrist, who cares? I'll get put in timeout. I won't have to recruit 5 days next year. And next thing you know, it won't impact me long term. The other thing that we need to do with the portal is we need to, I think, create some sense of free agency. Meaning if you are, let's use Alabama. I hate to keep going back to the Alabama example, but they used the portal to their advantage this year masterfully. They go out, they get a wide receiver. They need a wide receiver from Ohio State. The guy's a starter at Ohio State, but he now goes to Alabama, might get a few more catches, might not, but the rich get richer there. They get the leading tackler for Tennessee that was a starter at Tennessee, decides to enter the portal to go be in the rotation at Alabama. They now can go 5 deep at linebacker, when before they could only go 4 deep. So they only got deeper. They don't even need him as an everyday starter. So right now, great programs are able to cherry pick to reinforce their depth at positions of need, which penalizes the teams and creates less parity across college football. And it's only going to get worse because guys want to chase a championship, and they, in some cases, want to go to a greener pasture. So we need to figure out a way to penalize those schools that are cherry picking, and whether that's take away a scholarship or whether that's take away time on the road and recruiting of a high school player, what have you, because it's going to trickle down significantly. And I think the gap will get even wider than it already is.
Yeah, I agree. It's a little bit of a nightmare. So the portal wasn't around when you were at Alabama. You stick it out, obviously ended up having a great career. But I want to hear a story, any story that comes to mind. New coach is coming in. It's Nick Saban. He obviously had success prior to coming to Alabama. but it's still a new coach. You're unproven to this point in your career, right? I mean, you maybe played a little bit, maybe not. I don't remember. But what is your first kind of example or story of Nick Saban getting hired? He comes on campus, right? Because I remember when Lincoln Riley got hired at OU. You know, I'm bouncing in my shoes. I'm waiting, and I've got great stories about how he calmed everybody down. He talked about mentality over playbook and all these types of things that allowed us to really buy in and believe in him. So obviously Saban's gone on, he's done amazing things, and the rest is history. But when he stepped foot on campus, what was it like?
Well, he was a rock star, obviously, from day one. And he's not a big guy in stature, but he feels huge when he walks into the room. Like when it walks into the room, the whole place goes silent. You can hear a pin drop. And it's pretty remarkable the attention that he commanded. Now, he's gotten soft in his older age. Like back in our day, we used to get ripped every day. Like every day, ripped to shreds. I don't think I had a name until like my third year. I was 17 my first year, and then my next couple of years I was 12. And I don't think he referred to me as Greg or McElroy until about year 2, when I had earned his respect at that point, having gone through a couple off-season programs. Still to this day, the first off-season, we do what they call the fourth quarter program. I'm sure y'all have some variants of this. Like everyone has the same thing. Do y'all call it fourth quarter too? I think everyone calls
it coaches stations, and it was horrible.
That was all it was. It was like plyos. It was awful.
Oh, it was mat drills, the whole 9 yards.
Awful. Bryce, did y'all call it fourth quarter?
That's it. Yeah, it's exactly what we called it.
Of course. I think 3/4 of the country calls it fourth quarter. But I'll never forget this. Kevin Steele, who is formerly the defensive coordinator at Auburn, was with us at Alabama there for the first couple years. He told me, Greg, I'm not going to lie. I thought the whole team was going to die on the field. Like, I thought y'all were all going to die because we pushed y'all so hard that first fourth quarter program. It was unbelievable. So the first day, we had literally 7 guys walk out of the indoor facility. Scholarship guys, walk out. Say, I'm done. I'm not doing this. This is not what I signed up for. We ran 36 110s the first day. 36.
That brings back horrible memories.
We had to run, and no one made your times. Like if you made a time, if you touched your knee, like another one, it was supposed to be 16, but it just kept at more. We had 36 110s. By the last couple 110s, we literally probably were running in 27 seconds. Like, 30 seconds just dying, trying to get from one end of the field to the other. And I remember we did that for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. The longest they've gone since that fourth quarter program, 3 weeks. It was twice as long as the longest. And it's amazing to me that when you look back at that season, we were so beaten into the ground. We lost our last 4 games of that season, including a loss to Louisiana Monroe in 2007. So, yeah, we were a little beat up at that point, but you knew if you could survive the first fourth quarter program, which not many of us did, if you could survive the fourth quarter program, then you knew you're going to have a bunch of guys that would at least fight. We might not have been any good, but we were going to fight.
That's amazing. That's sure. that old school mentality, right? I mean, that is, dude. It was some of my
still thinking back to like what you had to put your body through, and it was purely a weeding out process. Like it was 100%. Like if you aren't going to be able to do this, you're probably not good enough because we're just going to recruit guys that are better than you. So like you're probably not going to last here anyways. Like we'll just run you off now. So it was unbelievable. We had to go through that first year. As far as fourth quarter program and conditioning is concerned. And Kevin Steele said it best, Greg, I thought y'all were all going to die.
But if you make it through that, you get to go win national championships right at sunset. And
it's easy now. They got it easy. Like it always gets easier as we get older, right? Like, the guys have it so easy nowadays. They only practice 9 days in pads in fall camp. 9.
Yeah. No such thing as 2 days anymore.
No 2 days.
They got it easy. They got it. Well, Greg, we don't want to take up your whole night, but this is a Big 12 focused podcast. And while we still have the Big 12, whether it's a week or 2 years, we don't know, right? I want to ask you at least one question before we let you go on kind of the predictions. I mean, obviously, everything you read, everything you listen to right now has got Oklahoma at the top, and then a very close second, Iowa State, which is, in my opinion, remarkable. What Matt Campbell and them have been able to do up there in Ames, and they've got some players. I mean, for the first time really in my life, you've got players that are in the national footprint that are on preseason Heisman watch list and those types of things. I mean, they're really doing some neat things up there. So, is it going to be Oklahoma for the 7th straight year, or do you think the Cyclones have a shot at maybe beating Oklahoma once in the regular season, maybe beating them for the Big 12 title? What are your thoughts?
No, that's the toughest thing is, you got to beat them twice, right? I mean, at least that's what it looks like it's going to require. Assuming you beat them the first time they run the table, I mean, they lost 2 games last year, still found their way in. Of course, I'm not sure many people would have predicted that. I know I certainly didn't think with how they started the season at 1-2, they would find themselves in the championship playing as well as they were down the stretch. So that was pretty surprising. But what I would say about Oklahoma and the Big 12 in general, I think it's the deepest league in college football. Now, people say, well, hang on a second, what? Deepest league in college football? How can you say that? Same teams won the league for 6 consecutive seasons. Okay, well, tell me this. We know that Oklahoma's number 1, okay? Number 2, and I think there's a gap between Oklahoma and Iowa State. For as good as Iowa State's become, I don't think that gap has shrunk as much as some people like to think. Last year, I think, obviously, they've played them very well. It's been a difficult matchup for Oklahoma because of the length that Iowa State has had, the physicality that Iowa State plays with. It's been a difficult matchup, but I don't think that the gap is as close because of the improvements that Oklahoma's made via the transfer portal. So I think there's a decent-sized gap there. I do think Iowa State's number 2. When you look at the gap that exists between Iowa State and everybody else, it's about the same size as the gap between them and Oklahoma. I think it's fairly significant, but not overwhelming. 3 through 9 is legitimately interchangeable. Like Texas Tech or Kansas State or Baylor or like all the programs that have been, at least with the exception of 2 years ago when Baylor finished 11-1 in the regular season, almost won the Big 12. It's kind of been those 3 programs at or near 5 through 9. Kansas is in the cellar. They're sitting at number 10. That's not changing. But Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech, Texas, Baylor, Kansas State, I mean, those 6 programs could all finish 3rd or they could all finish 9th. That's pretty remarkable when you really think about it. That means that every single team in your league could potentially beat you, because I've seen Baylor, which finished 9th in the league last year, give Oklahoma all they want. I've seen Kansas State, which finished 7th or 8th in the league last year, almost beat Oklahoma. I've seen West Virginia, that game got canceled against Oklahoma last year, but I think in Morgantown, that would have been a heck of a game. So I think when you look at 3 through 9, they're all, if they play their A game, able to beat the top team. And that's pretty remarkable. There's not a lot of leagues like that. It's a testament to the depth. It's a testament to the coaching and the improvements that have kind of existed throughout. So if I were having a pecking order right now, gun to head, Oklahoma 1, Iowa State 2, 3, I would have Oklahoma State. I think they're going to be pretty dang good. 4, I'd have TCU. A lot of people aren't really high on the Frogs. I think Max Duggan's going to have a big year. 5, I'd have Texas. 6, I'd have Kansas State, or 6, I'd have West Virginia. 7, I'd have Kansas State. 8, I'd have Texas Tech. And I'm trying to 8, I've had Baylor. 9, I'd have Texas Tech. But a lot of people think Texas Tech's going to be pretty good this year. I just got to see it to believe it. So it's anybody's guess, 3 through 9.
So you put Texas a little further down on that list than I would have expected. So what's the timetable for Sark? Does he got 1 year, 2 year? When does he turn it around? How long do you think it's really going to take?
Ooh, it's a tough call.
Or is it an uphill battle all the way down?
I don't think it's going to be an uphill battle because that's a place that can certainly recruit itself. I think Austin's changed, though. Like a lot of people, there have been so much scuttlebutt about, well, A&M fans have come out of the woodwork saying, well, this is terrible for us. This is awful for us. Like, we've had the SEC, and now Texas is coming into the SEC. Like, this is going to kill us. Not really, because College Station and Texas and Austin, Texas are two completely different college experiences. Like, some people are going to prefer College Station. Some people are going to prefer Austin. So I don't necessarily think it's going to matter that much. But I think Sark will get it going. I mean, I'm a believer in Sark. I've been around him, known him for a long time, dating back to his time at both USC and Washington. And now, after having really been around him quite a bit while he was at Alabama, I just think he has the right temperament. I think he knows how to massage the egos that need to be massaged at Texas, while also being able to recruit. And he put together a remarkably good staff that knows how to recruit the footprint, knows how to get into the Texas high school coaching circle, which is obviously massive. So he's done a really good job, I think, of assembling a staff. And I think he'll change the culture there. And obviously the move to the SEC will be significant for them. It will help, I think, a lot as far as what they can sell on what's coming. They can sell a lot of hope, and they can sell a lot of excitement. And I think they can sell an upward trajectory. But it's anybody's guess, I think, as to how soon. My guess is 3 years, but it kind of depends a little bit in that league whether or not you have a quarterback. If you don't have a quarterback in the Big 12, you're in trouble. So if he's got one, and I'm not sure who it's going to be, whether it's going to be Case Thompson or Hudson Carr or whatever. I don't know if necessarily care, frankly. You got to have a quarterback. Until he finds one, I'm going to have my questions.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Well, Greg, man, thanks for hopping on. We look forward so much to listening to you this year on TV and on the radio. And thanks for taking the time to join us. Again, we're looking forward to pumping these out every week. But, man, all the best to you. Look forward to talking to you again soon. And best of luck this year out there on the road.
I appreciate it, fellas. Thanks for having me. We'll do it again. We'll get back in 5 or 6 weeks and tell me how wrong my rankings were in the Big 12. It'll be fun.
Well, buddy, Greg, thanks so much, man.
Thanks, fellas. That'll be good.
Man, Bryce. Greg McElroy.
What a guest.
What a guest. Incredible. Not only his knowledge of the game of football, but just his stories, the things he talks about, his experience. That was a lot of fun.
I'll tell you what, and throwing out stats, man. I love stats guys. You got to have a good stats guy.
He's a stats guy.
I mean, scholar athlete. I don't know if you read Rhodes Scholar. Didn't get it, but it's still at the same time. I mean, I can't even spell Rhodes, and I think I looked it up. I spelled it wrong. So the idea is that guy's really smart. They got the what he's brought to the game from the analyst side of things. Growing up, South Lake kid, right down the street from us. What a great guy. So super excited about that. But it's time for our special segment.
That's right.
This is the Trevor and Bryce Show. So we do have what's called a special segment. What are we calling it, Trevor?
2 Qs and a beer, baby. Ooh, sound effects. Did you hear that? That is so good.
This is show number 1, and we were in sync. I'm excited about what things to come. So for our special guests, not only special guest being you listening, we have what's called 2 Qs and a beer, where real quick, Trevor and I are just going to kind of spitball. We have a pick one, play one, watch one. And it's just going to be off the cuff, probably nothing to do with football. Maybe it does. I don't know. We'll have fun with it. But really excited about it. Okay, so I'll go first, if that's okay. So on your pick one, I want you to who are you going to have a beer with? Pick one person that you'd have a beer with.
Yeah, this is tough. I mean, First of all, I'd love to have a beer with you every single week,
thank you,
which I plan on doing.
Sir.
But having a beer with anybody, right? I mean, it doesn't have to just be sports.
Nope.
Good gosh. This is going to take you back. I used to go to my grandma's house.
Okay.
And I would turn on
beer with grandma?
Walker Texas Ranger.
Oh, very nice.
All right. And I just thought that Chuck Norris was like the coolest guy in the world. And then he became like this icon, right? So maybe be a little off brand, but I think I'd have to sit around the table and have a couple beers with Chuck Norris. What about you, Brian?
Dude, I bet he'd shotgun like a champ. Too.
Oh, he'd outdrink me by like 40 beers in the first 5 minutes.
Without a doubt. Not that we advocate shotgunning beers. It's just, it does happen. Look, I think what's crazy, I think I got to stay in the sports realm a little bit. I would love to have a beer with Michael Phelps. We're cut off the Olympics, which is kind of fun. Most decorated swimmer in American history. I think possibly Olympic history. Not really sure. I didn't know my facts. Just wanting to have a beer with him. But I think it'd just be awesome just to shoot the crap, shoot the shit, whatever, and have a beer with Michael Phelps.
Yeah.
And I think that'd be really cool to sit there and say, hey, look, I'd probably put that on my LinkedIn profile.
I tell you what,
with Michael Phelps.
He did a great job covering the Olympics this year.
It was great.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. All right. So I love your pick. I
Okay,
think those are two good picks. How about play one? You're playing one round of golf with anybody. Obviously, for me, that's it. I don't want to play golf with Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're playing one round of golf. Who are you playing golf with?
How do you not play with Tiger Woods?
Okay.
That's I can, it's easy.
Fair enough. How do you pick against that?
Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Yourself.
Honestly, right now, and I know him well. I think he's a great guy, but because he's pursuing golf, and I've heard so many great things, I've never played around with Johnny Football.
I thought I knew it was coming.
And I love Johnny Football.
Yeah.
Shout out Johnny. Subscribe, man. We need you. We need your publicity. Miss you, man.
Right.
But yeah, I know he joined or he entered himself in a couple tournaments. Hope the best for him. I think it's awesome. I want to go play a little around with Johnny. Talk about the good old days. Yeah. Oh, he's way better than me. I'm a shankaholic, but
we don't say that word on here.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right.
Cool. So let's go watch one. Movie. Watch one movie right now. What's it gonna be?
The first one that comes to mind?
Yeah.
Glory Road, baby. Glory Road. Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if you guys go check it out. The miners of UTEP, obviously it wasn't UTEP back then, but it is now UTEP. They got a sweet new basketball floor, and it's the mountains on it and everything else, but it says Glory Road on the side, and as a tribute to the national champions out of the great city of El Paso. So Glory Road, great movie. Good gosh, gets me fired up.
Love it. I'm going to have to go. I don't know if this is considered a movie or not, so I apologize bending the rules a little bit. But I'm on a Ted Lasso run right now.
Love it.
Golly, that guy's fantastic. So I would say Ted Lasso.
Cool.
Right now. Okay, perfect. So that is our 2 Qs and a beer. Thank you guys for listening to that.
And we don't advocate drinking beer unless you're listening to our show, but we do advocate sports betting.
Yes.
So, Bryce, let's talk real quickly before we end the show today, because I know you guys are probably getting to work and you're sitting in your car and your coffee is almost gone. And so, let's get to it. Greg and us both think, pretty much the rest of the world thinks that Oklahoma is going to win the Big 12. So right now, Bet Rivers has them at a minus 182 odds to win the Big 12. Would you put any money on that? I mean, is it even worth it?
That's not the value play for me.
Yeah.
I tell you what, what's crazy about this. So they have Oklahoma at 182, minus 182. I think Iowa State plus 300 is kind of interesting. I think your bang for your buck, I don't know, between Texas, Oklahoma State is interesting to me. They're plus 1,600. Look, tough road to get there, but I think in terms of bang for your buck, I would go Oklahoma State. I don't know why, but plus 1,600 is not a bad bet right there.
I don't think there's a snowball's chance, and where that Oklahoma State's winning the Big 12 championship. But
I say better value.
I'm gonna go a couple bucks down on Texas plus 1,000.
Yeah, I think it's a great move.
Again, don't think there's a snowball's chance.
Yeah.
But if I'm gonna throw some money down, that's absolutely what I'm gonna do. Bryce, before we get off here, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about the platform that we're on and the people that make this all happen?
Yeah, I tell you what, guys. Trevor and I get a very unique ability to just talk ball, but we get to do that because of Field of 12 Media, brand new podcast and digital media network covering college football by the people that know it best. I wouldn't consider that we know it best. I said that we could talk about it, but it's okay. This is brought to you by Shoot Your Shot Productions, the folks behind the Field of 68. The Field of 12 gives you insight into the game we all love by the people that have lived it. Cody Saban, Harry Douglas are covering the ACC. Joshua Perry, my guy Hack covering the Big Ten. And of course, we will continue to be your go-to source on everything Big 12 football. So check the links below to the rest of our shows, the Field of 12, where college football happens. Buddy, that's a wrap.
That's week one, man.
Such a quick 45 minutes. I mean,
it is.
We got to. We'll do a better job of tailoring that down because there's so much information, especially on preseason show. But excited about next week, week one of the Big 12. Buddy, that's a wrap. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, no. Other than that, man, you guys just follow us along. This is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of great guests on here. We're going to be talking all things Big 12 throughout the season. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, all things social media will be out there. Spread it around. Tell your friends about us. Hit us up on Twitter. If you got questions, things you want us to talk about, we're going to be checking all that stuff throughout the season. There's going to be a live show every Saturday night recapping the games that Bryce and I will both have a little cameo on at times. So you guys join in for the show. But Bryce, man, can't wait to do this all season. I am blessed. We've been talking about this forever.
Yep, that's right.
And here
That's right.
we are. So the Trevor and Bryce Show brought to you by Trevor Knight and Bryce Petty. See you guys.
Thank you guys.